Hey, everybody, it's Thursday.
And welcome to this New Year's edition of The Night Bite.
I'm Josh.
And I'm Emily.
Yeah, that's right. It's 2025, isn't it?
It
New
is.
season 5.
But I guess, we are, I was almost going to say mid-ice season. That's like not even true. But we're getting going. We've had a few outings out. And actually, we were just talking before the show. We, over the summer, ran into a lake that we had never been to before this summer. And then we spent the whole summer talking about, we can't wait to get there on ice. We can't wait to get there on ice. And the cool thing is now it is ice season, but we've not done well on this lake.
No, we're giving it our best, and we might need to switch it up just for a confidence boost somewhere else this weekend. But no, we'll be back there. There's some good stuff to come. I think we've just been hitting it on bad weather, honestly.
Honestly, I think that is kind of true, because both times was like right as a storm front was coming through. Yesterday, it spent the day half snowing on and off. I didn't realize that there was snow coming. So I was really glad to have my shack to kind of hide in. But we drilled a lot of holes, and ultimately all we caught was really small fish. So it was nice to be able to track something down. We didn't start the New Year's with a skunk, right? But if you look at our posts, you can see the fish weren't really that much to write home about. So, the cool thing is you do get to jump around and try all these different places. And I think until this point, we were fishing areas where we thought that there would be ice, right? And so I think it's, don't get ahead of yourself. Don't assume there's ice everywhere. You want to check as you go. But at this point, I do think our options are just going to be growing, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the ice is getting a lot better, and we're looking at single digits in the evenings for as far as the eye can see, at least for us. So we'll be looking good. And it's ice season. We might not have caught a whole bunch of fish, but we made some new friends this weekend. That was kind of fun. Met some people from Green Bay. So if you guys are watching, good to meet you. It was fun fishing with you. But yeah, it's been tough, but I think we got some good fishing coming up here.
And even though it's been tough, it's been fun. But if you're like me and you're looking for a different lake, tonight's episode might have the perfect answer for you. And so before we get ahead of ourselves, let us know where you are at. Let us know what your ice conditions are or how fishing is going, because that is always a big part of the fun to see those trends. But let's get going and bring in our guest. So Joel Nelson, thank you so much for being here.
Hey, bud.
Hey there. Thanks for having me, guys.
So we always love to bump into you. I feel like shows and expos is always the place that happens. So it's kind of fun to be here instead. For people who maybe this is their first time, I was going to say meeting you as a virtual, I don't know, but tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, I grew up with a passion for ice fishing. I always open water fished. I grew up in a small chunk of farm ground down in southern Minnesota. We had little rivers and creeks, we called them, where we caught chubs and whatnot. But Grandpa, for so many people, took me out and did a lot of pan fishing. And pan fishing through the ice has always been a passion of mine since then. And I went to college in northern Wisconsin up in Ashland. So the Wisconsin homeland, it feels a little like home to me up there too. And I spent a lot of time fishing all over. I worked in Yellowstone for a while doing GIS work, and then the University of Minnesota for a while. And I've got a couple kids, and I'm trying to take them out and do a lot more fishing with them too. And just like you guys, I'm in the fishing industry and love promoting it, love the sport. Yeah, that's kind of a quick 40,000 foot view, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so what is it that you're doing now?
Good question. I stopped working for the University of Minnesota, where I managed a mapping lab. I did that for almost 25 years, and it was a great job. And the only reason I left is because my dream job kind of came along. I work with a company called OnX Maps. And if you hunt at all, you know about OnX Hunt. It has really changed how folks go about finding new places to hunt, finding resources and means to understand the seasons better, public versus private land. And I was actually hired by OnX to start a new division, so to speak, called OnX Fish. And that's been a really fun baby to rear so far. We're still kind of new. We're still in our infancy, but it's been a blast really getting that thing off the ground. And I've had a great time with it.
Okay, so OnX Fish, we are
Yeah,
about to get to this, but I do have to ask actually this question first. So you're
sure.
talking about your background in mapping and all of that. And I love talking to people that have fishing related careers that maybe aren't like tournament fisher, because that's a really hard thing to do. And I'm glad those people exist, but not everyone can be that, right? So
Yeah,
when you talk about that mapping, so you went to college in Ashland. I'm
yeah.
just interested in this as far as a career and how it relates to fishing and how people get into it.
Yeah, no, great question. You know, the fishing industry is it's tiny, but in many respects, there's a lot of facets to it, right? There's a lot of things you can be and you can do. When I started off in the mapping side of things, it was mostly natural resources related. And it started off in Ashland. Like I said, I went out to Yellowstone. I got a master's degree back at the University of Minnesota, but that was in the Department of Soil, Water, and Climate. So it wasn't really necessarily directly related to the fishing industry. It was just related to natural resources, which obviously a passion of mine as well, conservation. And the interesting part for me is that it just people that are into those things, that are into natural resources, tend to have fishing and hunting as pretty strong hobbies. And one thing led to another. I did a lot of writing, started attending ice shows like the St. Paul Ice Show we just had here a couple weeks ago. And one thing led to another. It started to snowball. I started writing more, working more for these companies. And I kind of had a foot on two different icebergs, I like to say. One was at the University of Minnesota job, and the other was in the fishing industry. And there were sometimes the icebergs ran pretty close together, and life was a little easy, pretty good to go. And other times the icebergs were far apart, and I was doing the splits. So this job has kind of allowed me to put everything together and kind of focus that mapping and fishing in a singular thrust through OnX Fish.
Well, and I also love how your focus is on mapping, because when we are talking about, whether it's hunting, whether it's fishing, finding that animal, finding that fish is how you fish where the fish are. That's what I'm getting into. It sounds stupid, but I think honestly people like really struggle in finding fish. So when you can do something like specialize in mapping or help other people with that mapping, I think that's going to be huge. And I think that's part of what brings us back to that OnX Fish. Is that right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think mapping is more than just contours. That's obviously a part of it, but getting to the lake, planning where to fish, figuring out what lake to fish at, orienting yourself in a way that helps you find snowmobile trails, public access, means that other people aren't really thinking of. All of those are data points, right? And I'm a big data guy. So the more data you have, the better information you have to process from and make better decisions with.
Well, and so I guess, you're making this all sound so easy. Like, of course
Yeah.
you should have access to that. Of course that should be out there. Like, what year is it? Obviously that's available. But I mean, I think that's what makes this so astounding is that this information historically, like up until recently, has been so hard to track down.
Yeah, absolutely. In Minnesota, we were lucky that we had the Lake Finder. It was a hunt and peck, one lake by one lake means, but in Wisconsin, it was even harder to find those data, even though they were being collected by your Wisconsin DNR. Now with OnX Fish, especially on the planning side of things, you're able to search for specific species. You're able to search for fish that just have trophy potential in any species or multiple species at the same time. And helping to find new places to fish is the number one deterrent to new anglers. And it's the number one reason why anglers in this leaky bucket scenario kind of matriculate out of angling, because it can be hard to find new water. We know where to go, but what happens on those bodies of water where when you know where to go doesn't matter as much anymore. The fish aren't there anymore. The populations change. There's all kinds of environmental factors as to why fishing areas of yesteryear aren't as good. So you need to find a new place. And if you can't, boy, how much fun is it to keep going out there and beating your head into the ice, right?
Yeah, I was just talking about that. Even a place where I know there's fish and I can't catch them, I'm ready to move somewhere else. But I think that's the thing is when you're kind of down and out like that is when you feel like you need that win most. Because like even me, I'm like, oh my gosh, okay, what's my next easiest lake that I can just go and guarantee a win for the day? And but I think that's important to talk about is because that's the one thing this app will help with, but not do. right? Like this will give you the hints. This will give you, but it's not maybe going to sell out your favorite lake, right? Is like you hear people worried about their favorite lakes?
Right. Yeah. No, it's one of those things where the OnX effect has been, well, it's been alive and well in the mountainous West where people elk hunt. And yeah, it's true. There are elk hunting trucks in trailheads that there never used to be, but it is also distributed pressure too. So you wouldn't have as much kind of glommed on hot spotting as there used to be. And the cool part with the app now, it's free. Everybody has access to it. It's not this kind of thing where only rich people can have it, or only people that are super talented at using technology can have it. This is, in my mind, quite a bit easier than operating live scope, I think. And if you're used to running electronics on the ice or open water, using your phone to do a little bit of mapping, it's fairly intuitive in comparison, especially these days. If you have any interest or have any use previously of things like Google Maps, Apple Maps, this is pretty plug and play, pretty easy to run.
So I'm going to admit Josh has it pulled up on our other screen. Can we maybe like give people a preview here?
Yeah, that would be awesome for sure.
Okay, so he's in the process of pulling it up. And so when you first get to the website, I guess that's what it looked like. And Josh is here logging in. Sorry, I thought you were already in.
Yeah, no problem. And I'll explain too. You know, there is a web version, and whether you're an Android user, an Apple user, you want to use it on your phone or want to use it on the computer, you can always go to that web version. But then for Apple iOS users, there is an app. And again, the app is free to use. So we'll talk a little bit about that and operating systems and whatever as we go down the line. But for anybody, it's available to anybody and everybody to run with the web version at any time.
I'm just having a little difficulty here. I have two pulled up
already.
No, it's not it's with me.
It's just a new year.
You do need to create a login, like we all have very many logins these days for all kinds of different things. But really, after you create your login, get that set up a password for yourself. The neat option there is if you're an OnX Hunt user already, you can use the same login credentials. And what's also really nice is between the app then and the web version, you can store waypoints, you can save favorite lakes, you can interact with the map, and whatever is saved from the app will show up on the web version. Whatever you do in the web version shows up in the app.
That is actually really nice when it can go the web and the app and back. Yeah. And so I guess the one thing I also have to ask is this still only iOS or is this for everybody?
It is on the app side, only Apple iOS. Again, for Android users, you can use the web version anytime you want. You can use it on your cell phone, just like a lot of the app users do. The app is an optimized experience. We are developing Android, but at the same time, this is a free version app. So we kind of need to stick with the development that we're already on path with. So we don't have a timeline estimate for Android. I can tell you that it is coming for certain. OnX has big, lofty goals for expanding all over the place. And obviously leaving out Android users would not be a good look. So we're definitely going to make sure we address those things as well.
There we go.
Nice work.
Thank you. I have my password and username saved under one Google profile.
Yeah.
And it wasn't saved under the other one, so I just had to switch because I don't know my I don't keep passwords. I let Google make them up for me because they're really hard, and then it saves them. So
yep.
But you were saying kind of before that if you're familiar with something like, you know, Google Maps or any of the other platforms like that, that this is going to feel familiar. And so the nice thing about getting into this program is that you don't start off lost.
Right. Yeah, and as you cruise around the map, maybe one of the first things you'll notice is that there are contours, but they're very basic contours. We're not trying to pretend like we have 1 foot contours everywhere. In fact, a lot of what we have right now is focused primarily on fisheries information. So if you click on the lake, anywhere in that lake, you'll come up with a full card of all kinds of fishery information for that specific lake. and you see an outlier or high abundance there for bass, that's a really cool thing. That means that there's for that lake compared to the rest of the lakes in the class, you can see that pointer above the little blue slider there for largemouth bass. They've caught a whole lot. And if you click on largemouth bass, you'll actually be able to see the species and size distribution just like you can on every lake. And if you look, down there in the bottom, you can see that catch per unit effort, plus it has trophy potential. There have been very large bass sampled in that lake in those years as indicated. And if you scroll up to that species and size distribution a little bit, you click that left arrow there next to 2022, you can actually look at multiple year surveys. And depending on the year or how the survey went, you may have great information, you may have a full data set, or you may not. But either way, you can track how this lake has been doing over time for every single individual species. Yeah,
That's so awesome.
Yeah, you click the back arrow. If you scroll up too, there it said special regulations. It indicates that Green Lake does have some special regs for the lake, and it links directly back to the Wisconsin DNR database, so you can get all that information for yourself. So just on top of the regs, on top of knowing what's in there, there's access and amenities that show you public access locations both on the map, and it lists them out. And if you've never been to this lake, you can see lots of different numbers kind of in white there out on the map portion. You can click on any one of them, and it'll give you just kind of a basic rundown of that specific area. What has worked there in the past? Presentations that are opportunities depending on seasonal bites or the time of the year. You can see also smallmouth bass is an outlier. That's really cool. Outlier means that it is way off the charts. And when you find an outlier lake for any species, it tends to indicate some incredible fast fishing opportunities simply based on the number of them in that system. So that's cool. There's a lot of data there, right?
Well, and that is actually cool because I can't claim to be a Green Lake expert, right? And I guess who can, because there's, a lot going on there. But I can tell you the number of bass tournaments that go on, the number of walleye caught, the number of fish, the number of people out there. It is truly a great fishery. And so to be able to access this data, that is really cool. And I didn't realize that you can sort, the data by the years and watch the trends over time, because that is really crazy. Sometimes if they sample May versus September versus whatever, you see those different fish, and that's all such interesting data. So I love to sort through that.
So you can click on lakes just like you're doing there. That's great. But if you zoom out and go to the northern part of the state, just get a bunch of different lakes kind of that you're looking at. You can also go to the filters, and this is where things are really powerful. If you go up there to that little all filter button, you'll see all of the different fish-specific filters you can choose. Maybe you want to look for sunfish and crappie or bluegills and crappies. You can click both of them. And maybe we want to look for lakes that have high abundance, right? We don't care how big they are. We just want to bend some rods. We need that confidence back, right? We were talking about getting back in the groove of things. Automatically, all those red dots that you see on the map to your right show you lakes that fit your criteria. Ooh, and if you're going just gravel launch, now you're looking and stuff in the wayback sticks, right? So.
But the thing is, you can get so specific like that. And actually, that's kind of blowing my mind, because as many of the different filters as he continued to add, there was an answer. There was a lake. There was a point for that. And so it's really cool that even if there's people out there that are somehow doing the same filters that we're doing, I don't know how many people are starting launch by gravel launch, who knows, but that, we're probably not all even going to end up on the same lake on the same day. So I think that's a really fun thing.
Yeah. And it gives people kind of an opportunity to be inspired by what they might catch, what they might find, what they might see. And if you click off all those filters, one other thing we can check out is the trophy. Yeah, if you click off that, let's select walleyes up at the top, get rid of our bluegills and crappies. And we want to look for just trophy potential lakes. That shows you every lake in that area that a trophy walleye has been sampled. So if you're hunting big fish only, this is an opportunity for you to go and maybe get on a lake that's well renowned for producing trophy walleyes and has the potential to do it again into the future.
Okay, so we have a few comments, and so I'm going to throw just a few of them at you, and some
Yeah,
of them we
please do.
might have hit on, but it's worth asking again. So, is this free, or what are the costs per year or month?
Absolutely free right now. There is going to be a paid version that comes out as we get better at what we do. But for the most part, right now, we're just trying to get people exposed to the opportunity that is OnX Fish. And then people can decide, is it worth it for me once the paid version comes out? And we don't really have a target date for that yet, but right now we're in a feedback gathering mode, and we really value what people are saying. So that's your opportunity. Go into the app, try it out, see what you think, and we've been pleasantly surprised. We've had a lot of folks really like it.
A quick shout out for the regulations as a quick link on each lake. So kudos for that. Also, another question: how frequently are the maps or even the fish information updated?
So we are tapping into the DNR for each state that we're presenting these data for. Currently, we're in Minnesota and Wisconsin, expanding into more states soon. But we're getting that data biannually at least, yet a lot of these surveys are only produced on an annual basis. So we'll get them the following year. We'll update all of that data and give you the best chance you can to have the freshest information.
I'm almost getting distracted here as Josh is clicking
No,
through things because
it's a little addicting, isn't it?
well, you know what I'm imagining is it's like this is the perfect way to pick a vacation because
Yeah.
you can imagine, what do you want to catch, or what are you looking for? And even if you have a group that's spread out, we're looking for more than one species. There's a lot of lakes where that exists. And so to be able to access that data without having to go to the DNR websites, look up every single lake individually, man, the potential is endless.
Yeah, and then as you guys just found, the fishing spots card gives you some suggestions, some opportunities in different places to try for certain species, different qualities and characteristics. And one thing that's really sneaky in the app, you can see on the right-hand side, we've got waypoints. You can add that. You can create notes. You can do all that stuff. But lower right, you've got weather. And this is like the one weather app to rule them all. I'm a big fan of Weather Underground. Always love Weather Underground, but the weather inside of here is even better. The way it's graphically represented, you've got hourly forecasts. If you scroll down, you've got your sunrise and sunset there. But if you scroll down even further, you'll see that you've got your barometric pressure lined out. You've got the moon phase. Muskie anglers, all the major and minor times totally tuned out there for you, along with the full lunar calendar of the week. Or you can go into the monthly moon phase and get a full plan out for everything that's going to happen that month. So from an angling weather perspective, it really has it all. There's not a lot left to be desired, and we're going to continue to make things better as we go. So this is a sneaky one. Not a lot of people know this exists, and these aren't just reporting weather from nearby observer outposts. You're not going to get the weather from 20 miles away in some metro area. You're going to get interpolated weather for the exact waypoint location that you market. So it basically, it calculates exactly what you're going to be looking at for temp, for barometric pressure changes, sunrise, sunset. It's all about where you're at on the map. It gives you that data custom for where you're at.
Wind direction?
Wind direction's definitely in there. If you look at wind, it's reported there. We've thought about graphically representing it. Stay tuned there. There's a lot of ways that we can express wind. If you're familiar with the Hunt app, they've actually found a way where, like, if you've got a deer stand noted, it'll tell you the wind at that specific deer stand location. You can do the exact same thing. It's called Wind on Waypoint here within the app.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I don't know how to say your name. OnX. Put that up. I don't know how to say your name. but it's called OnX, like the X on the map, OnX. So search for that. But we've been saying, so maybe try online if you're Android, right? If you are Apple, you can probably look for that app.
And it's OnX Fish.
OnX Fish, because there's also
OnX is
hunt.
the umbrella. Yep, and they have a backpack or backcountry. Is that what it's called?
Yes, there's OnX Backcountry.
Yep.
There is OnX Off-Road. There is OnX Hunt. There is OnX Fish, and we also own trout routes. So if you're a big trout angler, that's another feather for your cap when it comes to the OnX family.
All right, so Troy, you're wondering how to get to the weather info again. So if we
wait a minute to explain this first, because it's behind our night bite. I was going to say that too, and then I almost got distracted by these comments. But Josh is going to turn off our banner, so give us 1 second, because
maybe.
Oh no! If you can see in that bottom right corner where it says the Night Bite live show, the weather icon is like right below that.
Yeah, why is it? I don't know what happened here.
I don't know if it'll let us turn. Oh, I don't know if it'll let us turn this off mid-show.
Okay.
So we'll post a screenshot after of where the weather. Oh, there! Look, you can almost see it. Oh,
it expanded again.
Just leave it where it is, and then look at
Yeah.
Next to the word live, if you're looking on your cell phone at home, next to the word live, it says weather.
Right
it also says give feedback. So if you want to tell
right
Joel how awesome this is, yeah, go and send, I don't know, I was going to say some love notes, but maybe a smiley face or a virtual high five.
Yeah, so it's in the lower right-hand corner is what it is, Troy.
Okay, awesome. So I guess this is something that I'm gonna honestly, I didn't dive into this very much before the show, I will be honest, but this is something I'm gonna really have to dive into after this, because this is one of my favorite things, is to like look at the lakes, look at the maps, all of those different things, because that's honestly how we find fish, is just continuously trying new places. And I think in the past it was a little bit of a shot in the dark, almost like darts. Throwing darts on a map, random. But
I take a little bit more pride in my ability to figure out fishing data or fisheries data.
How much information?
But no, so my favorite thing, I was just kidding with you, Emily. But my favorite thing about this map is that it really does take all of the available information that has been out there for, the better part of decades, right? And condenses it into a way that is usable. And it's something like you mentioned earlier, Minnesota's been doing something similar at a very scaled down thing for a long time. Like that's what I grew up with. As I moved around the country, I figured out like that's not really the case. Like it was really hard to find fisheries data. And the more I got into it as a career, the more apparent it was that information that, that we, like even us as professionals in the industry, but also as public, like are paying for this information, right? This is information that we pay to have these people gather for us and manage our resources. And it was really hard to find. So that's what I really like about this, is it makes it accessible and it makes it really easy. You don't need a 4-year degree to kind of parse out all of these things. And it does help. Like if you do a little bit more research and you start looking into how trends work and you start to look into a little bit of population dynamics or pop die stuff, you don't have to dive way too far into that rabbit hole, but you start to learn a lot more about cycles of lakes and how things can come back from being not so good, or how lakes can end up being not as good as you remember them, because lakes do go through cycles. And so you can kind of see that with all this information. So it's pretty cool.
Another great question. And actually I'm going to ask a question on top of it, because it's what I was going to bring up next anyways. Troy is asking if you can pin spots within the app or online. And it sounds like you probably can, and that they would transfer. But also then when you put like favorites or pins or any of those things, is that all private, or is there anything that's public and shared?
Great question. waypoints are a big part of the app, and the customization available comes from the Hunt app, and the fact that you can tune it into any color, tons and tons of icons that are shaped specifically like a walleye or a crappie, or something that looks like a log because you found a pile of logs. So yeah, you can get really hyper specific. You can attach photos and notes to your waypoints. But yeah, there's a lot that you can fine tune in there. And no, your waypoints are yours and yours alone. Obviously, a company like OnX, Hunt, when we're talking about big stakes, high stakes, big game hunts, we're never going to take your data and sell it around, shop it around, make it accessible to anybody else. What's yours is yours, and it's going to stay that way. This isn't crowdsourced information. The data that we have on fisheries isn't crowdsourced either. It's directly from the DNR. It's from actual fisheries biologists, professionals at their own craft that are sampling these data. It's not like my kids when they were 13 and lying on Fish Brain about catching a bass in a river that does not hold bass. So there's a lot of integrity that we're really trying to preserve when it comes to OnX Fish.
Well, and so I think before when there was a question about like how often do maps update, and I think you gave a really great answer about like how often you guys update your maps and stuff. But I think that's the thing to recognize about the data is that there's a lot of lakes. Some of these lakes out in the middle of nowhere, like maybe they don't get surveyed as much. You know, some of these really popular lakes, they might get surveyed more often. I don't know exactly how that's determined, but I mean that's an interesting trend to watch or to see when your data is coming from, because there will be some inconsistency like that.
Absolutely. The way we look at it is we're just trying to give you the best heads up we can. But to your point, some of my favorite lakes, especially in Wisconsin on the app, haven't been surveyed in 10 years. So you kind of have to look back in time and do a little bit of prognosticating. You have to see the mix of species, the potential that it's had in the past to try to project forward to what potential it might have now. And yeah, it's part of the game that as anglers we play. And our goal and our hope is to give you guys 10 years of information, as if you were on the ground fishing these places for 10 years in 10 minutes of poking around on the map. And if we can do that, we really feel like we won.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's like a really crazy concept to me, because I'm trying to think of like, you know, even just, okay, we moved to the house that we're at, let's say 2 years ago. It was a smidge more than that. But even just the amount I've learned in this time, I'd be like, man, it's so much, but really, you know, it's not. But when you look at some of this data that you have access to, I mean, that's a really cool point. Like the 10 years in 10 minutes thing. I mean, you really can almost, when you have a map that you can find, you know, even if the data is limited, you can still know like, where's the deepest part of the lake? Where's the shallowest part of the lake? You know, those things off the bat are very helpful. And when you can partner that data with like the type of fish that might be there, or knowing when that was surveyed, I mean, you do have so many of those puzzle pieces.
If you can pull up the map one more time, I don't know if you have it up still. I'll give folks that are on this podcast a couple deep state tips that are way hidden in the background. If you go down to the layers button, it is behind the Night Bite live show kind of banner there, but there it is, the layers. Go ahead and select hybrid. And that shows you some of those contours, but you see two kinds of imagery you can focus on, both high quality or some recent satellites. So click on recent and start zooming around in the northern part of the state, really anywhere. And you can see actual ice development. We have been able to show data from 2-week periods as recently as last year. So you can scroll back. If you look on the bottom, it says recent imagery. There's a little banner on the very bottom center. Yep. Now go back and you can actually watch the lake's ice up. And what's even cooler, on popular lakes, really popular lakes, you can see concentrations of anglers. You can see where people are focusing their efforts. Yeah, I know, right? Here we go. This thing out.
Oh, Shauna Lake. Where's everyone Shauna Lake hotspot? Come on.
All right, there's freeze up.
Oh my gosh. So
See,
you
we
can
had all
almost
the ice
even
busted up because it got.
tell where the cracks.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
And that's right now.
That's where we're
Yeah.
at.
Yeah, that's as recent as it is updated. It'll update again coming up soon here. But yeah, it gives you some pretty interesting recent information. And one thing that was really cool in Minnesota's upper Red Lake, we were actually able to see all of the roads and about a 4 mile wide by 2 mile tall area of the lake that literally nobody fished last year. And so that kind of information would be very interesting to kind of key in on and think about, right? And you can do the same thing here in Wisconsin as we get more data and updated aerial photography.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and so I have to take this moment because this is one of those moments where somebody at home is like, "You're giving out the spots." But okay, seriously, to know the filter, to go to pull it up, to look for it, to zoom through the time, like if somebody is going to go through that much work and to find this data, they deserve that. You go out and you fish that spot.
You're hunting down the good stuff, right?
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, and then on the right-hand side there too, other layers. A real popular one is snowmobile trails. You can scroll down and click on snowmobile trails, and that's been really great for backwoods lakes, finding sneaky, tricky ways to get in via public land on lakes that may not even have any fisheries data, but there you go, those purple trails, but can kind of inform you as to ways to hit a milk run of lakes in the backwoods that, at least in northern Minnesota, I know it's true in northern Wisconsin, some of these roads during high snow years, they just stop plowing some of these Forest Service roads, right? So
yeah,
it's a pretty powerful tool to have all these data at your fingertips. And then you can put on precip radar as well. So if you want to look for oncoming storms, you can kind of see what's going on. I don't think we've got, there's just some snow bands there down.
Yep.
Okay, but I really like the snowmobile trails in combination with the timeline, because let's say that you are that person that you live, I don't know, down south, wherever, but you have your cabin that's like up north, wherever, and you're just waiting for those snowmobile trails. I mean, you can click through that timeline and see, are they melting? Are they okay? And obviously there's only so much that you can see from the map, right? But I can tell right now there's no snow. Right. Don't bring your snowmobile, bring your four-wheeler, right?
Yeah, right. No doubt. No doubt.
But that's really cool that could help you like pack up for your trip.
Yeah, you'd be able to see on the ground conditions kind of as they exist and make a good game plan based on that data. And yeah, that's what we've always been looking for. It's so difficult to head a couple hours away and find conditions on the ground totally different than what you expected, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and so then I also have to ask, with the like OnX Fish and the Hunt and all these other versions, do they talk to each other, so to speak? And so if you have points already on the Hunt app, will that be something that you can bring up in the fishing, or if you're passing one zone, look at the other?
It's a great question. We have intentionally kept them separate, and the main reason is because the functionality of the Hunt app is already so extended and so large. We need to keep the map clean to keep it usable and to keep it as simple as possible. It's a lot harder with more junk all over to click on. So we decided that if we would add the fish stuff to the Hunt app, it would kind of be a convoluted mess, and people that hunt and don't fish wouldn't appreciate the fish stuff, and vice versa. So we've got our own sandbox. We've got our own playground.
Okay, and then one more question. I was asked if I could ask if there was going to be any way to put in like your personal coordinates. So like if you wanted to like take your old school Garmin GPS handheld that us old guys have, and you want to go through and put all your points in, is there a way to do that, or will there be like it for when the Android comes out?
Yep. We're working on being able to have an import function that's really simple to use. Dump your points in a file, automatically shows up on the map. That's something that's definitely in the works. It's been asked before, and it really is a key piece of functionality that I think especially ice anglers would really benefit from, because I've always loved taking all my boat coordinates into whatever platform I'm using on ice. So why wouldn't it be on the app, and why wouldn't we make it easy for folks to do that, right?
Yeah, that's awesome. And right now it's just Minnesota and Wisconsin, right?
Yes, and we have plans to expand throughout the Midwest. Very similar use case in different states nearby, the Dakotas, Iowa, Michigan, all of them are in the ice belt. We all have good fisheries data that has been sampled to be able to utilize. So there's a lot of great things that are on the way for the app, and we're certainly not stopping at just Minnesota and Wisconsin.
Awesome.
Well, I am so excited to see all the new things that this app will bring, that you guys will bring out. And I know that our time here is almost at the end, but I imagine that if people at home have questions, if you are using this, if you come up with things, first of all, get a hold of that give feedback button that we joked about, kind of before we pointed out. But also, if you have questions, come and put them on this podcast, because, we can always connect back with Joel, we can always answer those questions, make that happen, right? But can you remind us, like, the website, the app, how do we find you?
Yeah, it very simply from the website, it's onxmaps.com/fish. You can always just do a Google search for OnX Fish, or within the App Store, if you are an Apple user, you can search on the App Store for OnX Fish as well. And pretty easy to find. We've got the big green X. That's our logo. That's made it definitely distinguished from the Hunt app, but within the OnX family. So yeah, you guys have been great stewards of the sport for so many years, and I'd love it if Wisconsin anglers or any anglers that are big fans of the Crappie Junction Night Bite Live show and podcast want to have more interaction with the app, want to learn more about it. You guys will be the resident experts, right? Especially if you nerd out on this thing. You be careful. You're going to spend a lot of time on this thing. It's amazing. It's addictive, we'll say.
Well, Troy is asking for a tutorial, so maybe once we go through it, we'll put something together and throw it out there for you.
and Troy, we also do have a master class that we run on a monthly basis. So you can look on the OnX website for that master class. And that will be coming up, if you allow me to check my calendar real quick.
Yeah, please do, because I'm about to sign up for it.
It is Thursday. It is Thursday, January 9th from 6:30 to 7:30 next week, next Thursday. And yeah, there'll be some great learning, some great information there. We'll do a demo, but we'll go even slower and even more in depth on the app.
Oh, that is so cool.
Yeah.
And then do you guys also do social media if people just want to follow along at general things that you post?
For sure. OnX Fish. Just go ahead and search for it on Instagram. We're very active there. We have a strong base of ambassadors, primarily in Minnesota, where the app started and kind of took foothold. But all of the same things that they'll share apply in Wisconsin and all of the other states to come as well.
Oh, that is so cool. Well, we are all so excited, honestly, for the end of this episode, so we can all just sit down and play with our phones.
Click away, and please send feedback as you have things that are done well that you really like, or things that could be done better. We'd love to hear from you.
Perfect.
Oh, awesome. Well, and thank you so much for taking the time to be with us this evening.
It's been great. We really appreciate the opportunity, and thanks on a personal level too. Known you guys for a long time. It's great to be on the show.
Oh, yeah, thank you. And to the people at home, you guys are always a big part of the fun. Oh, hi, Bonnie. But thank you for being here. And we're always looking forward to next week's edition of The Nice Bite.
Night, everybody.